Ever since getting traded from the New York Rangers to the Seattle Kraken, Kaapo Kakko has turned his career around. He hasn't just been an impactful player for Seattle. You could make the case that since his trade, he's not just the best forward on the team, but maybe the best player on the Seattle team. So that begs the questions, why are the Kraken getting so much out of Kaapo Kakko that the Rangers just couldn't? And why is the New York Rangers development just so bad? Well, make sure you watch till the end because we're going to be going through everything here today. And hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this all throughout the year, presented by BetUS. Now, as you guys know, we're big fans of Kaapo Kakko on this channel. I've always loved him as a prospect and always wanted to see him succeed so much more than he did in New York. He was a second overall pick for a reason. What he was able to do in the league in his draft year was pretty fantastic, and we really haven't seen that type of production since. In 45 games, 22 goals, 38 points, he was a pretty special player back then. And all throughout these years, I am still remained steadfast that if Kaapo Kakko was drafted to the right team, to the right system that actually truly believed in him, I think the story about his career would be different today, and that's why I was so interested to see him traded this early. He's just 23 years old. There's still some development time out there for him to really right the ship of his career and become a lot more like the player we thought he would be. And considering Seattle's track record of getting the most out of these more skill-based forwards like Jared McCann, Eeli Tolvanen, I thought there was a good chance that Kakko was going to be playing his best hockey in Seattle and finally get that confidence boost that he needed. But ladies and gentlemen, even though I thought Kaapo Kakko would be good for Seattle, he turned the page, started rebounding well and being a great player for them. He has been an impact player. He has been an elite one for Seattle, arguably their best player since the trade. You can see before the deal happened, in 30 games, he had 4 goals, 14 points. Not the worst production in the world. But you can see what he's been able to do this season for Seattle. And so far since the deal, in 14 games, he has 4 goals, 9 assists for 13 points. Kaapo Kakko overnight has become almost a point per game player for the Seattle team, and you might say that it's unsustainable, and I would agree with you in some parts there. But how he's playing, I think, tells a different story. He is a changed man. Now, I put a tweet out about a week ago going through Kaapo Kakko's stats. I've updated some of those, and here is his last 14 games and how they rank on this Seattle team. In terms of his 4 goals, that would tie him for 3rd place on the Kraken roster since December 19th. I don't think he's ever going to be a premier goal scorer, but the playmaking is what has really risen here. 9 assists in 14 games. That's 1st on the Seattle team. In terms of total points, 13. 2nd, right behind Jaden Schwartz, who's also playing well. You also got the even strength points. 11, also right behind Jaden Schwartz with 11 even strength points. But you also look at the expected goals for and goals against, and this is where things get really interesting because at both 5-on-5 and all around, his expected goals are among the top of this Kraken team. In terms of the expected goals for per 60, which is the offense generated in all situations, he is 1st on this Seattle roster. Granted, they don't have a bunch of superstars or anything, but amid all of the Seattle team, all the different players that they have, Kakko is number 1. And on defense, he has the best expected goals against per 60 in terms of the disallowing chances against the other team. He is 1st place in that as well. So not only is he generating the most, he's also keeping up the scoreboard the most as well. And I think in that case, in Kaapo Kakko's impact, we haven't quite seen this type of player until he's arrived in Seattle. Kakko's always been a pretty decent analytical player, especially when it comes to the defensive side of things, but this offense, we are seeing so much more pace, anticipation, and just all-around effort in Kakko's game, and I think the trade especially has motivated him to go to this next level. But I think the belief that Seattle has had in Kakko has gone a long way. I'm sure they communicated to him, obviously, through the trade, but not just through that, also talking with him, that they believe that Kakko can go up to this greater level than he has been with New York. And he's been on that first line recently, especially with Jaden Schwartz and Matty Beniers, who have been incredible. That trio has been fantastic for Seattle and has really been a difference maker for them. But you look at that date I mentioned, December 19th, since that Kakko deal and what we've seen out of Seattle, these are some of the statistics so far, and you can see a lot of that first line being a big part of it, with Schwartz having a great stretch so far, 14 points, 8 goals in 14 games. I got him in fantasy pretty recently. I'm pretty happy about that. But you also see Matty Beniers, who I think, especially over the last week or so, has really gotten going. 8 points, 5 goals in 14 games. You can see, of course, what Kakko has been able to do right atop this Kraken team in terms of offense, in terms of his generation. It's great to see. Really, though, it is a huge departure from what we've seen out of his teammates with the Rangers, because really the best opportunity that Kakko got on that first line was being with Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, and I just don't think those 3 players work all that well together. I don't think, especially in Zibanejad and Kreider's case, 5-on-5, there's a lot of speed or pace there, and I think that's something that Kako kind of needs a little bit with his teammates. I think especially in Jaden Schwartz's case, though, with the intensity that he can bring, he's something that I think has really been able to get a rise out of Kako in his game and really take him to that next level. Matty Beniers also has been able to push the pace and push the speed, and I think that is really important at the center position, to have somebody at that center position with Kako that can really rush up the ice with him and be able to create on transition. In Kako's case, though, in all situations, it just seems like he's so much more confident and so much more consistent. He's making plays and taking risks that he didn't do before. It just feels like once Kako actually went to a team that wanted him to take risks and wanted him to be successful at it, that we are finally seeing Kako actually do that. I think especially with the Rangers and how much they were a contender and how much every game mattered, that they were a little bit more hesitant to allow Kako to fully go out there and play his complete game. But I think in Seattle's case, with how they're down to the standings, they know they're likely not going to make the playoffs, so any growth that they can see in players like Beniers and Kako is the highest priority for them. And I think that freedom, that space to be able to play his game, I think has really helped Kako in the end. But he just looks faster. He looks like he's actually having fun out there, which is something that I don't think I ever really saw with the Rangers, which is a shame because Kako, I think, has a lot of potential. He has a lot of skill that he just hasn't been using in his time with the Rangers. And I think it's somewhat of a mental thing that he moved on with and was able to do that. But I think it just shows the different philosophies in these organizations that Kako is able to do so much more than he was before. And I just gotta say, since the Kako trade, when we're looking at Rangers scoring, he would rank first in the Rangers points. He would also rank first in even strength points, I think tied for third in goal scoring or something like that. He'd be up there for sure, which is pretty telling to not just how much the Rangers have been struggling, but also how much a trade was really needed for Kako's trajectory. He was somebody that I think couldn't have needed a trade sooner enough. The difference that we are seeing in his play is paramount. Now, when we look back to what Kaapo Kakko was in his draft year, this is the type of player I think we are now seeing that I saw back in his draft season. I think for one, we can all admit up to this point, I think the Rangers would even admit that they rushed him to the NHL. He shouldn't have been playing back in 2020. He should have been either in the Liga or in the AHL or some other system, because having him up that early just stunted his development and stunted the confidence that I think he really needed at the North American level. I think a lot of people don't really quite realize the jump that it might take from a place like the Liga, a totally different league, totally different country, totally different system of playing, to the National Hockey League. And I think he really could have used 1 year in the AHL to get adjusted to that pace of play, which is a pretty big difference between the Liga and the AHL and NHL. I think that's maybe the biggest thing that holds back Finnish players, is that difference in speed of the game, and I think that's something that has really haunted Kako all throughout his tenure with the Rangers. But I think if he was in a different system that had more patience with him and allowed him to be more of this offensive player, you would have seen this type of Kako before. I think you would have seen this type of difference maker, an impact player. It was always in there, but I think because of how the Rangers developed him, people just forgot about it, and it's a shame. Even though I had him number 1, and it was absolutely still, even with Kako's performance with the Kraken, the wrong place to have him back in 2019, you can now start to see why I had him back in that position, because he was such a development intrigue. He was somebody that just had so much potential with the way he played and the style that he had. And even though I still don't think we're going to get that type of player in the NHL completely, I don't think he's going to be this over point per game guy. He is going to be an impact player, and that's all I wanted to see out of him, especially with these last few years of struggles with the Rangers system. I just wanted him to be an impact piece, and we are seeing that with the Kraken this year. And this reminds me of a video actually 2 years ago that I made, which is crazy to think about, by the way, about the Rangers and my problems with their development up to that point. And it was pretty early, I will admit, for players like Kako and Lafreniere, but that was at a point where we really weren't seeing much progress in Kako and Lafreniere's end. And I got a little pushback saying that it was too early to talk about it. Yet today we are seeing still the same issues with this Rangers development to this day. That is, I think, now a big reason why they've been so bad this year. You look at the Rangers rebuild over the years and how many guys have really panned out for them. I mean, Alexis Lafreniere was panning out for them finally, but now you can see this season he's on pace for less points than Kaapo Kakko. Kaapo Kakko now, since that Kraken trade, is on pace for more points than Lafreniere this year, and especially when you consider the contract that Lafreniere signed, that's pretty rough to watch. Keandre Miller, I think, especially, is somebody that is absolutely stalled with this Rangers team. I think a couple of years back, you could make the case he was a future top pair defenseman, but since then has taken some massive steps back defensively. has been a little bit better since the Kako trade just because of the Will Borgen pairing. They've been decent together, but still not on the level that Keandre Miller probably should be. But you just look at it, Brendan Offman is something that I think has kind of stalled at the AHL level, even if he is still a solid player and probably will be just a decent guy. But you also look at Vitaly Kravtsov, Nils Lundqvist, Elias Anderson, so many different busts that had a lot of potential, I thought, at the NHL level. Not, I think, as good as they drafted him, especially in Elias Anderson's case, but the development was just so flat. There barely was any development whatsoever with these guys. Really, I think the only guys you could say were a massive success were in Philip Petel's case. When he is healthy, he's still a very strong player, and this year, Will Cooley. But even in Will Cooley's case, he's somebody that since the Kako trade has gone completely cold. He was somebody that had a lot of chemistry with Kako throughout a lot of the year, and that's dried up pretty much completely. Really, the goaltending position is the only thing over the last 30 years or so the Rangers have been able to consistently get right. Everything besides that has felt like a complete toss-up. And in the cases of players like Adam Fox that were practically gifted to them, I don't count that. The Rangers were gifted a top franchise defenseman. Adam Fox was always going to be that. When you look at guys that needed more development, needed more time to cook, what have the Rangers been able to do with them? Absolutely nothing. They have just not been able to develop, quite frankly, anybody that's been an impact piece for this Rangers team. When was the last guy that they developed that was a true first-line player, a true franchise guy? You can barely name them because the Rangers just have not been able to do that throughout the last 50 years or so. It just feels like a consistent failure by this Rangers team to develop the prospects they have. And I would love for players like Gabe Perreault to be the exception to that, but with how much the Rangers have stalled players like Hoffman, who have been stellar OHL guys, I would say for Perreault, stay in college, get your education. You might need it. It's getting to the point where if I was a top prospect, the Rangers would be on my don't draft list just because of their track record. It seems like no matter what type of player they get, they seem to always fail to meet expectations. And even in players like Alexis Lafreniere's case, who seem to finally be turning the page, they stagnated and are at the position they're in now. It just is extremely frustrating because this Rangers team went through a clear, expressed rebuild, but it feels like in so many ways they backpedaled almost immediately, prioritized contending, and we're seeing the ramifications of that. But I don't want to put that over a team like the Rangers because you can still contend and still be able to develop talent. Look at my favorite team in the Dallas Stars. They're developing talent basically every single year with their prospects. They're not getting top picks like the Rangers did. They're going all over the draft board, but are still able to get impact NHLers and develop them that way. It's a complete difference. And it's startling to me that the Rangers put so much prioritization out there about the rebuild back in 2020 or whenever it was, yet have barely been able to develop any of their prospects. You would have thought if they were going to put out, they were going to rebuild to their own fan base, they would prioritize at least a little bit, some decency in the player development, but I guess that's just not true. It pains me, man, because I wish that a player like Kaapo Kakko could be great in NY, could be a fantastic impact player for the Rangers, but it makes complete sense that right after he was shipped off, he's finally having the confidence and the situations and the teammates and everything that allows him to succeed, because simply put, the Rangers aren't interested in giving these prospects the opportunities to succeed. They throw them out to the Wolves and they let them have at it because that seems to be their only strategy. In Kako's case, I think he's proving that Rangers team and their philosophy wrong in so many different ways. And I think a lot of people realize just how bad the Rangers drafting might have been, but I don't think people realize how a lot of that has been because of the development. I think there is potential in a lot of the players I mentioned before that are clear-cut busts. Kaapo Kakko was trending in that direction now, but of course is in Seattle and looking like a true top six piece, even a true first liner for them. All it took was one little change and Kako is a completely different player. And if that doesn't show just how inept the Rangers organization is right now, I don't know what does. Now, before we go today, let's first talk about today's sponsor in BetUS, the place to make your hockey picks all throughout the season, whether it's on NHL games, the NHL draft, the Four Nations, or even if the Rangers are going to make the playoffs. If you're down in the dumps on them, I mean, right now, to make the playoffs, no is minus 180. If you do still have some belief, though, they're at plus 150 to make the playoffs. We'll see what ends up happening. But no matter the situation, no matter the team, no matter the game, BetUS is the place to make your hockey picks today. Just use code YouTube150 and you'll get an 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% sign-up bonus on your next two deposits after that. But that's going to be it for today, folks. I just want to talk a little bit about the Kaapo Kakko trade, just how rough it's been looking for the Rangers and how they have once again failed in their player development. I just needed to rant for a little bit. So thank you guys for obliging me. If you guys did enjoy, though, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Comment down below all your thoughts on this Rangers team and what you think about their future. What do you think about the prospects coming up? Do you think they can develop them? Do you think Kaapo Kakko could be a franchise-changing face for Seattle and how he has been for the Kraken? Let me know all your thoughts down below. Of course, share the video with all the hockey fans, all the Rangers fans, all the Kraken fans you guys know online. And click on this card for all of my hockey prospect talk right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I hope you have a fantastic hockey day. Goodbye.